a great job, like actually dumping a lot of money and production value into it. So it's good to see that.
Yeah, they've done so well with the production value, and having like a star-studded director cast to direct these episodes has been, I think, what's set a foundation for a whole new style of storytelling. And when you're dabbling with a universe so powerful and so fan-driven, that they have to be careful where they step, because they're creating canon content now, and this is not something that most people have seen a lot of canon content come out over the life of Star Wars. And that director base has allowed for this rich storytelling and these adventures that you go into, these different paths that you didn't think that you were ever going to see. And that's my favorite part about The Mandalorian. And I can't wait to see what Disney does with all of this shit that they just announced today. Like, there is a mountain and a half of Star Wars content coming down the line, and I don't even care if they make any of this happen within the next 5 years. I know the next 25 years of Star Wars content is going to be incredible. Did you guys see
is there anything that they've announced in particular that you're like more excited for than others, right? Because they announced like 10 different things, right?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Animated series, like Mandalorian type series. Maybe there's a movie in there that I missed. I don't know. It's like, so I'm curious, like, is there one series or one thing you're like really stoked about? Just given, your love for the universe that is Star Wars.
I mean, Lando, the Lando stuff, and seeing the continuation of that story and how they cross the paths with Han Solo. I really think that would be awesome. I hope they make more Solo content as well. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of this was all just series, and they didn't talk a whole lot about movies. And
right,
those
movies, it was all series.
It's all okay.
Yeah, those all series. So none of the movies were there, and there's a lot of movies that they'll have these stories twist through, I think. So they're giving us a long timeline, and then they're going to put these big movies through this process as well. But seeing Lando, how it goes through the story of Chewie and Solo, and then the Rebel, not Rebel, nope, it was the Rogue Squadron one. The Rogue Squadron one that I'm super excited for. And then, of course, we get to see someone who I never thought I would want to see act again.
Yep.
Like, Ewan McGregor, super stoked to see him continue as an older role of Obi-Wan, but in Anakin being played as a Darth Vader version of himself by Hayden Christensen just makes me cringe a little bit, but hopefully he does it justice. And, worst case scenario, he's Darth Vader in a robot suit. So they had 3 people originally play the character back in the day. So if they really don't like what he's doing, I think they could just like robot his voice out of this thing completely and call James Earl Jones and say, we need you to help us with this character and fix it, because he's not doing it justice. Oh man.
Yeah, but I'm actually kind of stoked to see Hayden Christensen come back. I mean, I know that the prequel trilogy was kind of, but I think it's kind of cool to bring him back, just especially as somebody like when those movies came out, the first Star Wars kind of like were generation before me, and then you had the prequel, which is kind of like my generation's like first Star Wars movie in a theater kind of deal. So it's like, so I recall, and now here we are 10, 15 years later, whatever, we're bringing them back. I think it should be kind of cool. I hope I don't know. I'm into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to see more of like a Clone Wars, like the original Clone Wars anime, like the cartoon, like those on Cartoon Network that we all grew up with. So, I want to see that being revisited. And I think just
Star Wars Rebels is going to be along those same lines, if I remember correctly. They're going to be doing that one as the anime series, and it's going to kind of be faithful to Clone Wars. And I said Rebels again, but Rebels is the one we already have. The Bad Batch, was that what it was called? That new one of the bad stormtroopers?
I'm not.
I
don't know.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to dig way back. Well, I mean, that's more relevant, but like, to get back to like the original Clone Wars, I mean, we're going back like a decade, when we're watching that on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, and spoiler free at the moment, Mandalorian has exploded the Star Wars universe completely out like a million different directions with the few episodes that they had that were like really important this season for Mandalorian. Like, it's been good, don't get me wrong, but there have been big things that just blow theories into so many ways that they could take it. And I think we're just going to be inundated with Star Wars content for a long time because, like we said, not movies, just series right now. The games that are going to be coming out still are going to be extensive. We have a lot to look forward to in 2021 and beyond for content, I think, just in general. But, you know, Star Wars always gets me excited. So a great way to start our show off.
Great way to start the show off. So, and with that, just welcome everyone to Theorycrafting episode 9. Back again, a couple weeks left in December. It's almost time to turn the page to 2021. And tonight we're going to think about 2021 a little bit. The anticipation is building. There's things we want to do. Games are coming out. Places we want to go. We want to take a little bit of time to kind of reflect on what next year kind of has in store for us. And we were excited to have you all along the ride with us. So before we get started, I want a big shout out to our sponsors for the show, Blue Microphone, ShotCall.gg, and AverMedia. Couldn't do it without you. Appreciate the support. And yeah, let's get into it. So this week we've got another guest on the show, and I'm going to kick it over to my co-host Kyle to introduce our guest to the people and get this thing started.
This guest, you know, it's been a year of not seeing enough of his face, just like any other year, I guess it really is. But normally I get to see a lot more of it. Ryan Cruz, aka Xano, has joined us on the show. Thank you, Ryan, for coming to hang out with us. It's been an hour chatting about all things video games and kind of diving into some theories of where we're going to see it go. But how are you?
Doing good. You know, I mean, we've all been a little sad because we haven't been able to see each other face to face, you know, all year. But, you know, or since February, I haven't seen you. So
yeah, I mean,
you know.
It's been the longest since I've seen you in the past 3 years. It's kind of crazy to think of that over the past 3 years, I've seen you at least once a quarter, if not even more often than that.
Every 1.5 to 3 months.
Yeah, for the past 3 years, and to not see your face, it's really sad. And you know, for those that don't know the connection between you and I, Ryan comes to almost every, or is it every? What is the official title?
It's almost every. I've still never made it to Montreal.
Almost every North American DreamHack event that we've hosted. So
and some European.
And even a European event. So he's come around and kind of followed me like a lost puppy dog is what I'll say to all these different events. But he's traveled around going to many different gaming events, and I would say has earned the title of a hardcore enthusiast from every perspective that I think you can earn the title. From being entertained by esports to competing in esports to building the enthusiast rig for home, the enthusiast rig for on the road. It's just extensive, your commitment to the gaming community. So I'm really excited to get to chat with you outside of one of these events, outside of our normal environment, and really dive into some topics with you that may be a little bit more relevant to you outside of our event space. So your passport has a lot of stamps for going around and going to events, but starting off with some of the games that have kind of led us to where we are now. I know your passion really lies with Counter-Strike because you follow the Counter-Strike series, the Masters, around everywhere it goes, if you get the opportunity to. So tell us a little bit about you getting started in Counter-Strike and what you've been playing through at least 2020.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing Counter-Strike ever since like 1.5. You know, 1.5 came out, I was playing it on a terrible computer, dial-up connection. Even before that, just LAN connections, you know, with friends, whatnot. You know, you have LANs in your room, in your basement, convincing the local school cafeteria to let you set up a space on a Saturday so that you can have a Counter-Strike tournament. And they have no idea what that is, but you know, you've got a bunch of people lugging in 80-pound CRT monitors for one day. So, you know, and just from 1.5, 1.6, played 1.6 a lot. You know, 1.6 to Source, then went back to 1.6 because Source was the not so favored Counter-Strike of the series. And then when Go came out, it was really just, you know, like Go reinvented the whole CS series, and they did a lot of things that were a lot different. And it took a lot of people a lot of time to get used to it. I mean, people were playing professional at 1.6 like a year and a half into Go. But, you know, and then Ninjas Pajamas really reinvented the Go scene, and then that goes all the way up to where we are today. So I've lived and breathed Counter-Strike. I have like 4,000 hours in it. Played at several DreamHack events. Those are my major, like I would say, my tournament competing. But other than that, it's just like that is the game that I love and breathe, and still to this day, I even though I'm old and can't hang out with the 16-year-olds that just wide swing and blow your head off, that's just where we are today. Like,
yeah, so I guess that was gonna be my quick question. Was like, is that like your game? It's like, okay, it's like that's the game for me, right? Because like for me, like it's Rocket League is my game that I am competitive in. I love. It's just like every part of my fiber, right? Even though I'm maybe not as good as I used to be, or I don't spend as much time playing it, it's still like my game, right? So is that like that's your level of connection with CS? It's like it's the game. It's like the thing that your rock, so to speak.
Yeah. There's no better game from a tactical shooter perspective.
And you've got to watch kind of the esports explosion of this through all of your playing with it. And what's your favorite event to watch, to go to? I'm not even gonna hold you to be biased for anything here either. This is totally off of the record for anything there. You can be as honest as you want to be here. But what's your favorite event that you got to see?
So the favorite event that I've witnessed in person would have to be Masters Dallas. It was supposed to be Masters Summer this year, but that didn't happen for obvious reasons. But my dream event that I want to go to is either IEM Katowice or ESL 1 Cologne, which is the staple Counter-Strike event.
Yeah, so what was it about DreamHack Masters Dallas that made it like that top tier event?
I think it was the biggest like CS tournament, one that's been in the States to date. Two, had the most tier 1 teams, and it's just the production value, the fact that the convention center has a stadium, I kind of connected to it, and they were able to just have the whole tournament in that stadium section, just made it feel like it was, we're seeing a time where esports is becoming a spectator sport, and I think that's really cool.
It has those legs. Hadn't really planned to dive in on this, but there's something about Counter-Strike's esports format that I absolutely love, and I know some people even have expressed that they don't like this about it because it has become so much of a football or basketball style back and forth. There's plays, they know what they're doing, they go in, they execute, or they don't, and sometimes it does get into that rhythm and cadence with two good teams that it'll be, did they make that shot or did they not make that shot with the ball possessions? It really does feel like it's a competitive sport all the way down through the ecosystem. And Counter-Strike is unique in that fact that they have that's developed around their game, and it's kind of set the tone for their entire game. Whereas Rocket League, that was built in, that was caked in from the very beginning. The format, and I know it has refined to a certain extent, but the competitive format has really settled nicely for both of those games, and that pacing for the viewer. And I think that's really solidified them as solid esports from a player and a viewer perspective. So I don't know if you guys want to discuss a little bit about how that has settled into your different scenes, but I think that is a relevant piece here, that those two games are so prominent in this traditional competitive entertainment format.
Yeah, I think it's, I think what did it for me for Counter-Strike when I finally realized that it was considered an esport was I was in a bar and E-League was on TBS and I was watching Counter-Strike while ordering a beer, and I was like, and like, I don't even have to be at home. Like, I can go like watch a football game and then just follow it up with like the 10 p.m. CS match reruns. So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I love watching Counter-Strike. I'm so bad at Counter-Strike that I don't enjoy playing it all too often just because I'm so bad at clicking heads. But like, I will watch Counter-Strike, and there's just nothing better than it's like a clutch 1v1, 30 seconds left, the bomb's ticking, and you're sitting in the crowd, and you can just feel the tension, right? And then boom, big headshot, defuse, and it's like, oh man, I miss it. Give me a LAN. I want to go back to LAN.
Well, I think that Counter-Strike has really grown from like a viewer's like perspective, where anyone can tune into it, and after a few rounds they can understand what's going on in a very simplistic like method.
There's something so powerful about that, because I've watched a lot of big esports events happen in person, ranging from a TI to League of Legends to Counter-Strike events, even some pretty big Fortnite stuff, PUBG. It's all about that fan energy, and with Counter-Strike you can feel it. Like Mitch described, that headshot, that defuse, you can watch it happen and feel that anticipation with it. And it's not to dumb it down, but it's simple, it's understandable and relatable. That's why car ball also works, because car hits ball in, goal good, yay, score. Headshot,
Soccer.
dead. That makes sense, right? More people alive, less people alive. These simple numbers make a lot of sense, whereas I feel like Overwatch, even for a shooter, got a little too complex for its own good. League of Legends and Dota, it takes such a wealth of understanding to really grasp what's going on and follow the energy. That's why at TI people cheer at graphs. That's my favorite part about TI, is when people cheer at the fucking charts. You know it's a bunch of nerds when that's the main source of entertainment.
It's like, yeah, data.
Yeah, we get to see my team's ahead. Yeah. But with Counter-Strike, that it's so fundamental. I think it's the right way to say that you can pick it up, you can grasp it, and you can feel that energy after a couple rounds of watching it for the first time. And when you're in an environment where there's everyone around you is sitting on the edge of their seat, that transfers, and that's a big deal for the energy of those scenes. And it has been, I think, why it's a staple still for these major esports events that happen, even these major esports, multi-esport events. Counter-Strike still has its place and its crown right now up there with the big boys. And when you look at the game that it is versus the games that it competes against with some of the publishers out there, it's impressive that Counter-Strike ever ended up where it did with the way that Valve has managed it. But, it's going to be a king forever, is what it feels like at this point. It's established.
It's still just a Half-Life mod.
Do you think the Half-Life mod will ever go away?
No. I don't.
Do you worry that a game like Valorant would have the ability to chip away at Counter-Strike?
I mean, we're already seeing that it is. With everything moving to online this past year, there's been a lot of tier 2, tier 3 Counter-Strike teams that haven't broken into that upper echelon of CS that are going to Valorant, because that's where like the new emerging markets are.
That is a very good observation. I do believe that there's a split that needs to happen off of Counter-Strike, because the number of paid teams, that's always one of those stats I love seeing at the end of every year, is the number of paid teams, the amount that was paid out. And like Dota, that's very few teams, like 500 teams are paid out. You look at Counter-Strike and there's thousands of teams that are paid out, because if you count paid out, they won a tournaments that could be ranging from a DreamHack Community Clash all the way up to Katowice, and that still counts as paid out if it was tabulated.
Yeah, technically we're paid out.
Technically you're on that list. So like there is a large discrepancy in the amount of money that's put into the paid out Counter-Strike scene versus how many people are in it, and Valorant is opening that door to allow for more people to have a top spot, because it's now doubling essentially. If you just think about the same teams out there, the same orgs out there, they all added a Valorant squad on top of their CS squad. Now there's literally double the amount of potential for these players to find seats, and that does open quite a door. But do you think there's going to be transferable skills between the two games? Like if
yes.
a Liquid has a roster in CS and Valorant, are they going to pop people back and forth between?
I don't think they'll pop people back and forth between, but one of the really hot takes right now is that any tier 1 CS team could go to Valorant and be the number 1 team in Valorant within 3 months.
Interesting.
I would believe that too, just based on my own experience playing Valorant and playing Counter-Strike. I mean, the fundamentals of point name, click on head doesn't change, right? And there is an economy to manage. It's different, but there's an economy, and it's still 5-on-5, and So I think the fundamentals, the principles are very, very similar. And I know that my friends that played a lot of CS, as soon as they start playing Valorant, just like you're starting from square 5 as opposed to 0, right? And with these pros who've been spending 10,000 hours, clicking on heads, like, yeah, it definitely translates. And you're seeing a lot of these bubble guys go over to Valorant because, yeah, maybe that's where the opportunity is now.
Well, and it's funny, you'll see them play an official match and then an hour later boot up their stream and then play Valorant.
Yep.
It is going to be an interesting line to be drawn. Not to say that there's like bad blood between Valve and Riot, but it is going to be a battle for who has the best economy-based arena shooter out there. And will they allow players to flip-flop and transfer between the different sports, or are they going to require them to be committed? Because if it were up to I'm gonna go on a theory crafting tangent here. If it were Blizzard and if it were TF2 in Overwatch that were squaring off like this, do you think Blizzard would allow players to go back and play TF2 if it was an equally sized scene? I think they would make them exclusive to that game. Or maybe they are already exclusive to Overwatch. If they are an Overwatch league, can they play anything else professionally? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either.
So from a Counter-Strike perspective, I know a lot of teams are experimenting with 6, 7, 8-man rosters now.
Yeah.
Is that something where we see, so-and-so is playing an official in Valorant on the same day that we're playing a CS official? Okay, we just have, 10 people on the roster and we just split them 5 and 5.
Interesting. Because there's nothing. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I would not be surprised if Overwatch League has basically painted all of their players into the corner of having to be exclusive to playing Overwatch, just knowing what we know about the league. But this is also why a guy like Sinatra had to leave his Overwatch League team to go play Valorant, right? So I think from a practicality perspective as well, like as a pro, I am playing one game. I'm not going to split my attention between multiple games, because if you want to be the best you can, you need to be focused on a single game. And your other games are, on the side for fun, blowing off steam. But I would not sign up for that as like if I was a pro. But
yeah, it will be interesting though, with the way orgs are structured right now, having a lot more content creators that are kind of like I don't want to call them their benched esports players, but a lot of them are their benched esports players. And if you do cycle in and fit into their FPS metric of the game that makes us the most money is one, next down the line all the way through, do you end up being just a Fortnite influencer if you can't quite make the Valorant squad, if you can't quite make all the other teams? You just go and play one of those instead of working your way back up the ladder. But do you feel like CS is going to stay up there for the test of time of a Valorant, of the Fortnites, of the other BRs, like all those other shooter games? Essentially, these players are going to be transferable. And are you going to see these these CS pros as they get older benched down to these lesser roles of, now you got to go play on the Overwatch squad because you're a great shot, you've got great mechanics, you understand shooters, but we need someone on the Overwatch squad, and now this org owns you because you signed a contract.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny how when Valorant came out, all of the semi-retired CS pros, or just slightly older CS pros, I'm saying, slightly older as in like over the age of 26.
Older than me and Mitch,
yeah.
I'm washed up because I'm too old.
They're now playing Tier 1 Valorant, and very successfully Tier 1 Valorant. And I'm not saying Valorant's an easier game. I'm just saying there was a market where these guys could go and they could be successful. So, and we're seeing that with Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams as well. It's just like CS has become very exclusive to just Tier 1. And there needs to be almost like a junior league and ESEA tries to do that with MDL League, but it's still very exclusive. There's 16 teams, no real move ups, move downs. So it's just they're stuck in there.
This is hard though with a game like Counter-Strike. It's so mature and established, right? We're talking 20 years of history. So of course the people that jump ship from CS to Valorant are immediately Tier 1. But as the rest of the talent has time to develop, those washed up CS pros are no longer going to be tier 1 Valorant pros eventually, right? This is the same thing that's going on in Rocket League right now, is that you're at your first kind of crop of pros have basically all been weeded out by kind of the second wave of up-and-comers, and there's a couple that are hanging on, right? But it's very clear that they're just not as good as they used to be, and that's just a part of the scene maturing and developing. I think Counter-Strike is like at the end of its not at the end of its life as a game, but like it's so mature and so solidified that like it's really hard to break through in that game. So heck yeah, I'm gonna go play Valorant because that's new and exciting.
Yeah. Cool.
I feel like it's gonna end up like racing, where like a team like a Ferrari will have a Formula 1 driver down to Formula 2 drivers, down to Formula 3 drivers, and they'll have this like talent pool that they start grooming at a very young age, and it'll work both ways. You'll see them pass the old and the new on their way up and down in these orgs, but I do think the orgs are starting to look at that too, is this long term of investing in the early talent and trying to find those players that are going to be able to move in to a position of ultimately power in that scene. And making those early investments have been risky and hard for a lot of these orgs, and they usually seem to have a lot of controversy around them, is all I can see from the outside. But I think that is the direction that you'll have to have this go, and that grassroots level, that junior level that you're describing, it will find where either it's a game that may not be as popular, or whether it's actually a supported league underneath that. I always thought it was going to be a supported league underneath that, thinking like football all the way down to Pee Wee football, all the way up to NFL, that kind of structure. But it could very much be that it's just different titles, because gaming IP is going to be a thing, and these publishers are going to be fighting over this similar space if there's potentially money to be shared there.
I mean, Riot is going to dump a ton of money into the Valorant esports scene, and I've said I think Valorant is one of the best things that happened to CS. I've never seen as many CS updates in the last year as I have this year, so I think it's good. I think they finally lit the fire underneath Valve, and they're like, oh, we finally have been challenged after 20 years.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to actually listen to the community and make some of the updates we've been sitting on for the last decade.
Up on Mount Olympus, Valve finally hears the plebs down below. Oh, you've been screaming at us for decades. What do you want? Oh, okay, we did that already. I guess we'll push it out. It's been done for like 10 years. Don't worry about it.
That's funny. So Ryan, I know that you're big in Counter-Strike, big gamer. I want to talk a little bit about events. I want to pick your brain a little bit about events. So first of all, I just want to understand, like, you go to a lot of LAN parties, right? You like to travel around, go to these LANs. So I'm just kind of curious, like, why? Like, why do you enjoy going to LAN parties? Why do you enjoy going to every DreamHack you can? Just like, what's driving that?
So like I went to the first DreamHack, like Austin 2016. I've been trying, or I was trying when I was younger, to go to a DreamHack event. That was like one of my life goals. It was like I saw it in a PC mag in like 2009, and I was like, I'm gonna go to that one day. I don't care what it takes. I get a job, I'll save up money, I'm gonna go to one of those. And then they came to the States. I was like, perfect. Nice 17-hour drive. I was there. But like originally it was like the LAN parties, but like we've met so many people and like developed such like a small community within the community that it's like you're going to see your friends like every 3 months. It's like these friends from all over the world, all over the North America, come in from Europe. It's like you're going to see your friends that you haven't seen. And for me it's every 3 months, but I still talk to these same guys like every day on Discord. So you finally get to go hang out with them, and it's just a different interaction when you get to hang out with them in person than staring at them through a computer screen.
There's something special about that group. There really is. It's become a core of our festivals, and that gathering of them is tradition now. And it's even to the point where it's been fostered internally at DreamHack to encourage that this continues to happen, that this tradition of these, what we call our more hardcore users, that do follow us around to a lot of events and have earned that prestigious title of founder for our events, of being some of our best supporters, our biggest supporters. That group is kind of an energy all in itself. Wherever it goes around the show, you know that they're going to bring that true DreamHack spirit to whoever they interact with. And I don't want to like toot your horn too much or like inflate your ego any more than it already is, but it really does service the community and show that this is what DreamHack is all about. And we don't have those 25-year-ers that have been going to DreamHack since it started, like over in Europe. And having this core group that we know believes in the same things that we believe, and being able to spread that around is just awesome. And we know that when you guys go home, we have that as well. And like you said, every day in Discord, you guys are hanging out, you guys are chatting, you guys are planning your next trips. I know that you guys even had a LAN party in the past 9 months, not at home, right?
Whoa! All right, pump the brakes. What secret LAN parties? Tell me about this LAN party you just had.
We all got together in Denver last month. Since no one's on the same weekend as DreamHack Atlanta. Since we couldn't have Atlanta, we had our own little get together with the group. Those that could make it.
Yep. It's that spirit that we love to capture and have everybody around also feel, and that energy is just so infectious. I miss it so much. I want more of it right now. And
well, it's one of those things that's like every time that like we leave an event, we always come back with more people that had never been to an event before.
Yep.
We finally, it's like, hey, it's like we talk to people about it, they're on the fence, they end up not going, they see how much fun we have. And then it's like, all right. And then, 3 months later, they're like, all right, I'm booking a flight to somewhere. Instead of driving to the one that was closest to them, they're flying halfway across the country to go to one just so that they can like experience the group, what it's about.
And I have data that I could actually generate off of this. It's probably in text message or Discord form of the requests of, hey, we need this many seats in our row this time. We need this many seats in our row this time. And it just went from like, oh yeah, we need like 5. Oh yeah, we need 12. We need 22. What the fuck? You need 20? How do you have this many people? I love it, but okay, let's 22 seats. Here we go.
Yeah, and it keeps growing too.
It does. That LAN community in the US is so thirsty for events. It's so hungry for events that
thirsty.
Yes, thirsty for events. We're thirsty boys for these LAN parties events. is how I grew up, at least. I was thankful enough to have one in my backyard. So many people didn't have LAN parties in their backyard. They didn't have the ability to end up in a room with even 20 to 30 other people, let alone 5, 6, 7, 8, 900 plus, or however many there were in Sweden that time that you went. I don't remember the total count at the Swedish show you went to, Ryan, but
yeah, summer 2019.
It's big.
And I think the thing that really like spoke to me was like in the US, we have like a nice little, Kyle gives us a nice little like corner for our LAN party. And
of course.
It's like over here in the corner at the very end of the hall, furthest away from everything. You guys go sit over here and don't mess with anyone else.
Yes.
In Sweden, it's like, here's 4 halls and it's like 9,000 people and it's awesome. It's like, this is what we need. We need to move it to, this is what we need to bring to the US. We need to get 9,000 computers in here.
There's a dream.
We're trying.
Someday, I hope to have that record in the US, but that was a very big record that was set back then in Sweden. The halls that you just wander through and can just walk through the LAN and see everything there. The culture is so much different there.
That's what I was going to ask, is like, do you guys think that the US actually has the culture to actually achieve something like that, right? Or is it just more of like we need to continue to grow it and sustain it, and maybe it takes 5-10 years to get there?
I think it needs to be grown and nurtured very carefully.
Yeah.
I feel like also we're living in a kind of a different time, like a more of an online era where people don't, why would I come over to your house and play video games with you and bring my whole setup when I can just, join the same server as you and hop in Discord and we can party up and have almost identical ping.
Yep. The original allure of going to a DreamHack has kind of drifted away, and it used to be the badass internet. Now everyone's got at least a decent enough pipe to be able to play, and your ping is, like you said, pretty matched. It's not going to be LAN, but most people don't care enough to pack up all their shit and move it and then be there outside of their own comfortable cave that they've made and spend all that time and extra money and effort to be somewhere else. It really is a lot to ask someone to bring their PC that is potentially one of their most valuable possessions that they own, let alone how much time they spend actually using that device. It's a lot. And I worry every time I watch people move their stuff into the shows that is a precious object. But that desire to meet in person, that desire to sit next to that person that you chat with on Discord whenever you have a funny thought or you see a meme, you're like, yeah, I'll send this to my buddy. Like, they're right there, like, dude, check this out. Look, it's a meme. And there's something special about that. There really is. And it's so intangible. But that's what really makes going to events worth it. Whether it be a giant music festival, whether it be a PAX where you go stand in line for 18 hours to do one thing. Being there with your friend, with someone else, maybe you made that person a friend that day. That's what really ties me back to these things. And that community over in Sweden was built from a very grassroots level. And it was built at a time where it was needed and there was no other outlet around that these events really covered. And it grew up with an entire generation, and that generation hadn't even had kids, and now those kids get to go to that same thing that those parents went to when they were younger, and they know what that made an impact in their life. And hoping that their kids have that same impact for the second generation of going through these Swedish shows. We're not even through the first generation aging to the point to have kids in the US and North America for these events. We're an entire generation behind. And having that same acceptance, having that same desire, that same need to connect with people that their parents did is what's going to keep these big events pushing forward over and over and over again. And gaming had a bad stigma, a terrible stigma. I mean, we grew up with that. We were all nerds when we grew up, right? We were the geeky kids at school that played video games instead of doing the outdoorsy stuff. I mean, I know Mitch did a little bit of sports, but I definitely did not.
Lots of outdoorsy stuff.
Do the sports.
Right?
I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough, so I'll be the other side of that. But gaming has finally hit like mainstream, and we've talked a lot about that mainstream and that push of it being okay to be a gamer, it being encouraged to be a gamer, and now that we have that, the direction of our events in the US and around the globe really are going to be much more limitless than we've seen them now. And I think we're just starting to see these events kick off. So in that same thought process, if you could have the gaming events, because we're seeing gaming theme parks being made now, if you could have the gaming events, like your Katowice that you designed, Ryan, with all of the different shows that you've been to, what would it be? Where would it be? I want to know some of these things.
Where would it be? It'd be in Jönköping.
Yeah, you want to put it in Mecca?
It'd be at the Elmia. Yeah.
Is that just out of pure nostalgia sake now for
yeah.
this? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it's out of nostalgia sake. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm a big like LAN person. Like, I love the US events, but I go for the LAN. I don't go for the expo. Whereas the US events are very expo driven, I'm very LAN driven. And just the fact that, and I hate this about it, because I went over to Sweden and I spent maybe an hour on my computer because I was so like starstruck by everything else going on that I just didn't even LAN. So, but yeah, I think it would be in Jönköping. I think it would be that community, like that, because you have people old and young. Like it's just that whole two generations of people that are there enjoying it.
So did you sleep in the sleeping hall when you went?
I did not. I stayed at the Scandic.
One of the lucky people to get a room at the Scandic.
Yeah, I had to book it about a year out.
that hotel, man, that hotel. There's something about Jönköping that I love so much. It's, for those of you that don't know, it's this middle of nowhere town in Sweden. It's literally like in the center, I think, of Sweden, if you really look on a map. And 2 hours from each major city by train, and there's
trains.
There's this major event center there, and that's where the record for the most people at a LAN party is set. That's where esports grew, the fastest internet. Like, there's so much that grew out of this little town in Sweden at this event center that it really is like a journey out to Mecca. But the Scandic Hotel is one of, like, I think a handful of hotels in an entire town. It doesn't have that many rooms. It really doesn't. And it's the closest thing to the convention center. And the fact that Ryan even had a room there was a miracle in itself, because there's not even a room for all the staff to stay at that hotel that we run the show with. So
it's funny because I actually Googled DreamHack Summer, and the event came up on the Scandic website before it was announced on like by DreamHack. So I was like, I just booked it. I was like, I'm going from 6 days, good to go.
Well, so did you bring your computer? Did you bring a computer with you when you flew to Sweden? First of all,
I did not. I was fortunate enough to have Kyle provide me with one.
Ah, okay, you had the hookup. Because I was gonna ask you, like, what's it like to fly with your computer to like a different country on the other side of the world?
So I do that domestically.
Oh.
I have, if you see right behind me, this nice little Loke Ghost S1.
Yep. That
I put in a Pelican case and actually fly to every event.
Like the Pelican case, is that like some sort of flight case or something?
Yeah. It's just a hard case, and I made sure that the computer is just small enough that it'll fit in a Pelican case that'll fit in my carry-on. So I check a bag and then take that as my carry-on luggage.
Oh, okay.
I think you even had that PC featured on Jay's page, didn't you?
Yeah, and Intel. Intel Gaming.
It's a beastly little computer. That travel build inspired a lot of other travel builds in that same row at the end of the day. How many of you guys
It's amazing. It's amazing how probably 50% of the people who go regularly to DreamHack with us now all have a second small form factor build.
Weird how that works, right?
Yep. I think Hobbs was actually the original.
He was. He had the Dan's case.
Yep. He was the OG of the land build, because that guy travels to more lands than you do, which is saying something.
But see, we're all like, I can do 4 or so dream hacks a year. He'll do 5 dream hacks a year, every PAX, QuakeCon, BlizzCon.
Wow.
Yep.
If he doesn't go a month without it going to a LAN, then he's in another state, then there's an issue.
I've wondered what he's done this year. This is
nothing.
No lands. It's so sad to see Hobbs on the ground so much.
He was supposed to come to Landemic with us, but it didn't make it.
Landemic? Is that what you called the Denver land?
Yeah, Landemic.
Oh my god, I love it.
You guys are a bunch of
hooligans. You should have
hooligans.
led with that. Come on, man.
These are marketing geniuses over here that have just gone to enough shows that they know exactly how to market them, because they'll tell you what they want. That's all they need.
We were this close. We have designs. We were this close to having a giant banner printed.
You know, you just give me a call whenever you need that banner printed. We have the hookup. We can probably get one printed for you. I'm not sure if anyone will want to actually print Landemic on anything, but we'll see. We'll see. So,
I actually have one more question about the small PC. Sorry to jump in, because I'm intrigued by this small form factor PC. So when you built this thing, like, what's inside of it, and like, what were the value decisions you had to make? Right? Did you have to slim on the graphics card because you didn't have enough space, or kind of what were the judgments that were going into it, and kind of like I don't know, how do you think about constructing it?
So it's actually an i7 9700K and a 1080 Ti with a full water loop within a small form factor build.
Of course, you got a full water loop, right?
Yeah.
And you travel with the water in it, right? Or with the liquid in it?
Yeah, so I actually reached out to TSA and contacted them about traveling with, and they said since it's a closed system and you can't in their eyes, it's a closed system, so they don't think that you can open it and drain it. And it's a closed loop system, so it's legal to be taken as a carry-on on a plane.
But I can't bring my toothpaste with me in my carry-on bag? Okay,
no, sure. I can take about 1.5 liters of coolant on the plane, but you can't take your toothpaste.
It is really funny to watch you guys pull these things out of the suitcases, and I just always have wondered, what does it look like to TSA representatives that aren't quite sure what a computer looks like, and one that could be that small, that alone, that compacted into that small case with a liter and a half of liquid in there.
Yeah. It's funny because they'll flag my like book bag with my keyboard and like Ethernet cable in it, and like go through it and be like, what are all these cords? And I'll be like, oh, we're going to like an expo. But my like Pelican case will go right through the scanner and they have no questions.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever had stopped and flagged by TSA?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just normally like my book bag, really.
This
like,
is a family-friendly show. All right, just remember that.
Yeah, I've never really been stopped by TSA.
I had really thick granola bars from Europe get me stopped going through TSA in Dallas once. That was an interesting experience. They said that they looked like explosives because they were so densely packed in bricks. It was the weirdest thing that I got stopped for.
Huh.
I had some CBD gummies once. They're like for sleep. They had melatonin in them, and they came in this like little circular thing with a screw cap, and there's like 30 gummies in there, and I think it looked pretty sketchy. They're real confused. They're like, sir, what are these? I'm like, oh, it's the CBD gummies. They're like, we're gonna need to swab these, and they did the whole thing. They like swab them, like bomb material and shit. He was like, all right, cool.
Don't plan on doing anything silly with my little gummy bears. Don't you worry.
No, don't open
fret.
them. Don't touch them.
So, with the year coming to an end in a way that we really didn't anticipate this year, I guess, coming to an end, we finally got Cyberpunk. And I hear that you've committed, the game's been out for what, 20 hours, and you've committed 15 hours to it
15
so far?
hours, yeah.
Ooh.
So, well,
Let's get that first impression review. Let's go. Let's hear it.
yeah, so I was able to download the day one patch at 7 after I recovered from the fact that the Steam servers crashed for about an hour. I started probably playing about 25 hours ago, and I've put 15 hours into it so far. Definitely top 5 game of the past 10 years.
Wow. That's a big statement. For the past decade, from 2010 to 2020, like this is going in that decade as one of the best, right at the end, at the buzzer.
And I think it's just because it pushes the envelope so much. Like this is this decade's Crisis.
So how does it push the envelope? Like, be specific.
I think like what they did with the like graphics wise is so like, unfortunately I still am running a 1080 Ti, so I have not experienced the game in RTX, unfortunately. But what they have done, like how they have pushed it graphically, is just like they push the game and like the standard to the next level, which is what Crisis did 10 years ago. And it's one of those games where they had 50% of the users, like in the PC gaming world, go out and have to build a new PC in order to experience the game how it was meant to be played.
But I've also heard, so it sounds like you're playing on PC, so I know that one of the big issues with this game coming out is that, for instance, like the PlayStation 4 or like the current gen, or I guess the previous gen console, PS4 and the Xbox, whatever the lowest tier one is called, the graphics are actually pretty shitty on those, right? And then as you get to like the PS5 and the Xbox, super good one, like it's fairly polished and good, right? So there is this discrepancy between like all these different consoles they were trying to service. So it seems like you got to be on the right platform to really have that perspective that you said.
Right, I would agree. I think they were trying to cater to a very large audience when they built this game. They wanted to get as much market share as they possibly could when they released it. Like ideally that they should have just made it a launch title for the PS5 and the Xbox. What is it? Xbox One S? Is that the
Series X?
Nobody actually knows what it's actually called. Just make up a name. Doesn't matter.
The Xbox New.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, the new current gen boxes.
Yeah, I think they should have made it a launch title for those.
I mean, it kind of is in a lot of ways, because you look at those games, we talked about this on the show already, but there was not a lot of content for those consoles when they released. Mm-hmm. This is the first thing, a month later, this is the first real game to release that is going to give those things a real run for their money that's new, that people have not played, because everything else was a remake or a remaster or something that's already been seen before, or something tiny, nothing big, nothing that you can really sink your teeth into and dive into. Assassin's Creed was the closest thing, and I don't even think that really was that monolithic of a game. Like, this is the or I guess not cross-platform, multi-platform game of the new generation of consoles, and defining that with the graphics, I think that's why they delayed it, to be honest.
Yeah. I think they wanted to get it right, and I don't think, like, playing through the game, they didn't really do anything out of the ordinary. They took like the best parts of like multiple titles that have come out in the past 5 years and just was like, oh, we like this looting system, we like this inventory system, you know, we like the gun mechanics of this system, and they just took all those things and put them together, and it's like Fallout meets Watch Dogs meets Skyrim.
It meets The Witcher.
Yeah.
it has an interesting feel to it, and there's something about the detail and the depth that they go into with every single thing in this game that it's almost overwhelming to have so many different pieces of content giving you information at the same time, and then to go and see the detail that they have in each and every one of those. You don't see this in many games. You really don't.
No. I mean, they went like all out on character design, voice acting, like the city design in itself is amazing. Like, I wandered around the city for like several hours before I even did anything, and I got lost. Like, if you don't open the map, you'll get lost.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so it sounds like it has some of that like kind of open world sort of vibe, like almost like GTA or like a Red Dead or something. Where
it's 100% open world.
Okay, so that's really rad. I don't plan on buying Cyberpunk. I don't think my computer could run it. I don't play on console, but it's good to hear a positive review. I think the internet in general has just been kind of very negative on it. Maybe just my echo chamber is one that is tooled to be more critical than, you know, kind of standard consumption or whatever. But all I've really seen is just kind of negative and just sort of like, oh, the graphics are not polished on the PS4, blah 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 blah. So it's good to hear like a review of someone who actually kind of like has sunk in a lot of time in it and is enjoying it.
I can't even imagine what it would be like to play it on something more beefy than what you and I have, because I have a 2080 Super, you've got a 1080 Ti, like those kind of run at around the same. I can turn on ray tracing, you can't. Like, that's the biggest difference, I think. But like having a 3080 to run these things on, a 3090 to run these things on, like, holy smokes, this must just use all of that. And that's the trifecta of, I think, what happened here is that they delayed the game because it wasn't done. And to be honest, I can still see places where this game is not done, but this is going to be, like you said, that giant market share play. This is going to be a Grand Theft Auto competitor, and we have not seen a Grand Theft Auto competitor that has stood the test of time. This has the potential to. Night City can stand up to Los Santos, I believe. So they're going to continue to support this game.
That's a big statement.
If anything, I think it's better.
It has the potential to be better. It really does. So the way that the city feels, it feels alive. It has that depth to it that not many old consoles and old computers are going to be able to keep up with. And when they do want to push it to the bitter limit of how pretty it can be, which they've done in a world that is massive, you normally don't find those two together. You find someone compromising somewhere along the line. They didn't compromise on this game at all. It could use a little more polish and a little bit more detail through the whole entire thing, but when you're making something this big, you're going to have a brush stroke that's a little fucked up every so often, that if you want to go back and touch up, you can, but the overall package of it is so good. So it's such a big game. It's so pretty that the computers and consoles couldn't play it. It was delayed just because it was so big, and then it was delayed because it was 2020, and they had to reimagine how they were going to complete this game, I imagine. But being a console release-ish time frame, being a holiday time frame, I think they had to hit that sweet spot. This was their last chance to really get it in underneath that 2020 belt to be that game of the decade, because they are going to be the potential game of the decade. They're going to beat a Breath of the Wild, which in my opinion is more polished, is more perfect in a lot of ways as far as a masterpiece goes. But Cyberpunk has that depth to be bigger. Like you said, a Fallout, like a Skyrim, a Witcher. It's just bigger and deeper and has more detail to it than anything that I think we've ever seen with this kind of immersion to it.
Well, I mean, how many hours have you sunk into Oblivion or Skyrim, like over the last 10 years?
Started with Morrowind all the way back then, so the Elder Scrolls games have consumed so much of my time, hundreds of hours, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands.
And I think the way that they're painting this game is there are hundreds of hours worth of content. Like I'm 15 hours in. I don't even know if I don't even know where I am in the game.
You've just been lost for 15 hours. Just wandering around. It's like being in a dream hack. You've just been wandering around in circles. You don't know where you are, just trying to figure out where to go next because everything's so cool around you.
What I am excited for, though, is they have already said that they have plans on doing a GTA online style multiplayer experience. And I think that if they can learn from GTA's mistakes from their online, where it's not entirely microtransaction based and there aren't cheaters everywhere, just give me a good anti-cheat and don't make me pay real money for everything. I'm fine earning it in game. I'll grind it out and pay digital money for it, but I don't want to have to whip out my credit card every time I want the latest thing.
You're talking to someone who's ground out a lot of GTA Online, hundreds of millions of dollars, I think, in that game is what it feels like, at least. But they really have to make that play with this game, and that's kind of where I believe development for games is going. We're seeing these big games. They've been working on, CD Projekt Red has been working on Cyberpunk for a long time, and this is a huge investment. And even if they are the best-selling game, the fastest-selling game, all these titles, it's not going to be enough to recoup that initial investment that they've put into developing this game, especially taking the attitude of, we're not going to release it until we feel good about releasing this. And I think this is about as good as they could get without being completely nitpicky and getting too gritty into the detail. They had to put it out there eventually. They had to get feedback, but this is going to be a living piece of software. This is going to be more like a World of Warcraft, more like that decade-long play for them, I feel like. Similar to what you'd have with an Oblivion, with a Red Dead, that kind of stuff.
So here's a very interesting take. Would you be okay with them doing large open world concept games, such as this, a huge city, and selling real advertisement on billboards in game?
We talked about something to this effect. What was that? It was
NBA 2K, or not 2K, but it was NBA something.
Yeah. So on their load screens, they have ads, actual commercials that play in them. So
no, I don't want anything like that. I just want maybe just a flash logo that's
So I actually like this idea of if there was a billboard in Cyberpunk and you drove by it and there's a Honda ad or something, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like that because it doesn't break your immersion. As long as the ads are fit for the space that they show up in, right? As long as it looks like the creative department put a little bit of effort into making it feel cyberpunky, right?
I agree. Yeah, you can't just wouldn't be the local Honda dealership when you drove by.
Right. So you need a little QC in there, but I personally would be totally open to something like that. It's way better than here's a load screen, giant full page takeover that you can't get out of. It's no, just a little Honda ad, it's whatever, right?
Absolutely. You're driving by and there's Pepsi or there's Coca-Cola, and but it needs to be styled in the cyberpunk way. It needs to look like it fits on that billboard for the year 2077.
It does, and I think that's where they have created a magical place to go and visit. They've done a great job with that, and the application for the long term of that is limitless, kind of like Fortnite has done with their concerts and things. You could have, if the online is done right, you could have Night City concerts, and those would be incredible because you get to take your avatar from Cyberpunk and go in and go to a crazy Cyberpunk theme show, and that would be amazing. I love the idea of that. The idea of just having a Tide detergent ad pop up on the side that's Cyberpunk themed, it just makes me want to cut my eyes out of my sockets.
I agree with you.
So I think it's a necessary step, but I think it's also something that is not going to make me happy at the end of the day. And I don't think the community's going to like it at the end of the day, but these bigger games that need something to push that funding, if they don't do well, what if this flops? What if this game does not do well? This will be the biggest flop of the decade. I think it's already sold enough copies that it'll do well, but if it's not profitable, this will be considered a failure. And it would be very interesting to look at it from that direction, and what would CD Projekt Red have to do at that point in order to make this game be successful? Maybe they do sell in-game ads because they've got one of the best in-game advertising platforms on the planet, but it kind of, viciously goes down because they don't have users if this is considered a flop. But I think that they've got a good enough world that they'll keep people coming back as long as they've put out a similar model to Grand Theft Auto and just let the online system through a cosmetically themed microtransaction system just continue to churn out new content forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like I don't want to see cyberpunk stylized Tide Detergent ads inside my cyberpunk. Like I don't want that. But like if that is the world that we happen to stumble into, I think I would be okay with it. I want to be kind of clear here, because I think at the end of the day, like advertisers and brands, they want to be in the game, right? This is why when Riot put all the advertisers like in the actual League of Legends Worlds map, like during Worlds this year, right? You had the actual banners of like Alienware and Honda like in the Rift. That was so momentous because like these brands want to be in the game, and I think that it's a natural next step. I do think I don't really want to see it in like a cyberpunk kind of world, but like yeah man, like I'd also would not be like opposed to it, right? I think there's like this fine line here of doing it tastefully, and I hope we don't get there, but who knows, man? Maybe that's where we're going to rewrap.
Well, you said you come from like the Rocket League side of things. Like, do they do any type of like advertisements on like midfield or like on the dome or?
So until recently, they did not. They actually had a very strong no ads in the game kind of stance before like this most recent format change. But now they've started putting like, you'll see Verizon's logos are in like the sidewall banners, right? So just like a standard like a hockey rink or any sort of arena, you have those like ads around the sidewalls. They're starting to do that. They also have, there's one big billboard that's outside of the pitch that's visible sometimes that they've started throwing ads on as well. So I think that it works really well in Rocket League because again, like arena advertising around the sideboards is really natural as a viewer of hockey or basketball or baseball or what have you. So it doesn't take away from the experience. If anything, it makes it feel more real to me, right? Oh, there's a Verizon logo. It's in the sidewall. Like this is legit. And they do not put anything on the actual grass. I would love to see them maybe drop a couple logos like on the grass. They haven't quite done that yet, and I don't know if they will.
Well, I feel like they're trying to just like, slowly introduce things and see how the community reacts before just going full-fledged and putting it out on everything.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how Cyberpunk does with all of that for sure, and taking that community feedback and trying to keep their game successful. This first 24 hours looks like it's been pretty mixed. I think they have the right formula to kind of follow some of these other successful models that we've seen out there and turn this into a game as a service for a long time. And I think we're just going to see more and more games go that direction. Looking on to 2021, Halo, and now in fall of next year, the launch title for the Xbox will finally be there a year later almost. So eventually, that game is another one that's going to be bigger, open world. How long is that one going to stick around? Is this going to be a Halo for the decade, or is this going to be another copy paste Call of Duty? I don't know. But
is this the first Halo that they're launch titling on the PC as well as on the Xbox?
Yes.
So I thought
this is the full transition of Microsoft over to the Xbox, no longer being an actual box, but more of a Steam.
Yeah,
they're going that way.
Going Game Pass.
Good, better, best. Only on Game Pass.
Only on the Game Pass. The best Christmas gift for the holidays. We're not sponsored by Game Pass. We just talk about it every show.
And we probably should be at this point.
Yeah, we need to be.
Or if you have, Discord Nitro, where you get a free Game Pass for 3 months.
You do? 3 good months.
Really?
Three games, yeah. Do you have a Nitro subscription, Mitch?
So go boost your community Discord.
Go boost my Discord.
Man, I'm gonna boost your Discord. You can barely even structure and run it.
Hey, it's now
just
set up
recently
properly.
got to be able to send text messages yesterday, so like that was great.
I was fiddling with it. I may have fucked a few things up, but it's better now. It's gonna be fantastic. Steve hooked me up with a little bit of guidance today. I now know how to Discord better than I did yesterday.
What are you guys' thoughts on this comment from the Peanut Gallery over here? Halo ain't nothing compared to the flagship game Bugsnax.
Whew. Those bug snacks, those are some creepy critters that just want to consume each other. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of horrific displays of violence. I'll go back to my alien shooting. But on that note, I think we're at the end of the show. We've been chatting for an hour. So Ryan, I'd like to thank you for coming on and joining us, dude. This has been nice. Good time to catch up on a little bit of what's been going on with you, and be able to show you off to the world. You're one of my dearest acquaintances from the show circuit, and I've been very happy to call you a friend over the years. So happy to have you on the show. I'm glad Mitch and I got a chance to chat with you, and we'll see you soon. I very much hope in person.
Yeah, I hope so. I appreciate the invite to come on. I know we've been trying to get this together for quite some time now, so I'm glad I could finally make it to one.
Landemic takes priority, so it's okay. we understand.
It does. Lands always take priority. But if you guys watched this show, thank you so much for tuning in. If this was your first time, awesome. Make sure you follow us on this Twitch page here, Next Level. You can check out some other content that's produced on this channel on other days of the week. We've got some stuff on Wednesdays, we got some stuff on Fridays, and then you can catch us on Thursdays at 6 Pacific on the Next Level Talk Show, talking about all kinds of things that we theorycraft, the future of video games and esports and Game Pass, because that's all we really talk about here is Game Pass.
Game Pass.
Game Pass, Game Pass. I'd like to thank our sponsors one more time, Blue Microphone, AverMedia, and ShotCall.gg for supporting our shows. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.